Thank you, thank you. Well, clearly we've wasted way too much time in that introduction, but thank you nonetheless. I am humbled and honored to be here by the work that you guys have all done. It's exceptional. And it's a pleasure to share with you what's inspired me and the lessons I've learned, and to share with folks really a mission I'm on to really revolutionize philanthropy in a certain way. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. My motto in life has been that the best way to predict the future is create it yourself. And ultimately, that is what all of you are doing. You're creating the future that you want to live into. And that's what all of us do, whether you're a CEO or shaping the lives of a person as a faculty member or an entrepreneur, and especially a social entrepreneur. I wanted to thank Keith Kegley for the invitation to be here and share with you what I'm doing. Keith is both in part of Social Venture Partners and the X Prize Foundation. So my life got started when I was about 8 years old, inspired by aviation and space. So to the Compton Museum, I voted for you. And it was the notion that this tremendous dream that we were opening up the space frontier. And I got inspired so much by the potential and the vision of where humanity was going, the thought that it was during our lifetimes that the human race was moving irreversibly off the planet. And I committed my life. If you think about having a mission and a purpose in your life, my mission and purpose was to open the space frontier, to be part of that, not only to go myself, but to take other people with me. And that's what drove me. And it's the sense that you're driven by something you love, that you're willing to do whether you're paid for it or not, that makes it possible. Because everything significant in the world is hard to do. It's all hard to do. So you have to love it and not give up when everybody else would give up in life. And I got excited by Apollo, and this man over here, Gene Cernan, the last human ever to walk on the moon in December 1972. I remember like it's yesterday when he said, if we could have gone from never flown a human into space, never flying a human into space, to landing on the moon in 7.5 years later, you tell me what's impossible, because nothing is impossible. And I believe that. Today we have the technology, the wealth, the resources to do anything. It's a matter of committing the human mind and passion to making those things possible. And that's really it, committing the human mind and passion and believing that you can, in fact, solve those problems. Because if you don't believe you can solve them, then you can't. So my passion got reignited by this guy. So here you stand, stands before you a man who was still 8 or 9 years old in my heart, always wanting to go into space. And I gave up somewhere along the way at NASA being the way I was going to get there. And it was, in fact, reading about Lindbergh that I realized that in 1927 he crossed the Atlantic to win a $25,000 prize. And I had no idea that he did. I thought he woke up one day and just decided to fly east. But in fact, there was a Frenchman, Raymond Ortega, who put up a $25,000 prize. That prize inspired 9 different teams who spent $400,000 to go after that prize. And the most unlikely guy to do this was Lindbergh. He was called the Flying Fool. He'd been flying for 2 years. No one would sell him an airplane or an engine because they were afraid he was going to crash and set back, their business. So ultimately he did, and he made that flight 33.5 hours later to St. Louis, from St. Louis to New York, and from New York to Paris. And something amazing happened. When he made that flight in 33.5 hours, he transformed the way people thought about aviation. And it wasn't the fact that he made the flight, but it was the impact of that flight was so big that between 1927 and 1929, the number of people buying tickets in the United States went from 6,000 to 180,000, a 30-fold increase. He had changed in people's minds what was possible. And I know, and you know, that sometimes the biggest obstacle for changing the world is what's plugged in people's minds, right? So that dramatic demonstration dislodged it and literally put forward today's multi-$100 billion aviation industry. So I got really excited about prizes. I started studying prizes. How could they be ineffective? Where did they work? Where did they fail? So I became a student of that. Read in particular that in the 1700s, the very first prize ever was in 1714, the Longitude Prize, because being able to tell the latitude of a ship was easy, what time local noon was. But telling the longitude was impossible. In fact, in 1708, 2,000 humans lost their lives at sea because they didn't have their longitude. So in 1714, the British government started this prize. They expected an astronomer would win it. But instead, and very, very much the case for prizes, something untraditional happened. It was this man, John Harrison, really driving the development of clocks that solved the longitude prize. And it took him 40 years to get paid the money from that prize because everybody wanted the astronomers to win it. So as I went on and started studying prizes some more, it turned out that Napoleon, during his Russian campaign, was losing thousands of humans again from malnutrition. So he put up a prize, how could I preserve food? And it was a French candy maker, Nicolas Perret, who came up with the canned food and won that prize. So the question was, how was I going to get my dream of spaceflight going? And I knew in what I studied about prizes that there had to be a clear goal, really simple goal. And I had to have the money, and I had to inspire teams to go and build spaceships. So the concept I came up with was a $10 million prize. $10 million was enough to attract the entrepreneurs, but not the Boeings and the Lockheeds. I wanted this one in some kind of an innovative new fashion. Build a 3-person spaceship, so at the end of the competition, you could have a pilot and 2 paying passengers, an autopilot, and 3 very brave passengers. And get to 100 kilometers altitude. Originally, we had it at 100 miles. We did the reentry thermal characteristics, said it's coming in too fast from 100 miles. We lowered it to 100 kilometers, knowing full well most Americans know the difference between 100 miles and 100 kilometers anyway. Sad but true. And then you have to do 2 flights within 2 weeks. So under the arch in St. Louis, I announced this prize. The problem is I didn't have $10 million. And I didn't have any teams. But what I did do was I realized one of the tricks was, how can you announce this prize above the line of super credibility? There's a line of credibility. If you announce it above the line of credibility, they may believe you. If you announce it below the line of credibility, people dismiss it immediately. But then there's this line of super credibility. If you announce it above that, people say, oh my God, it's incredible. So what happened was, on stage, I got the head of NASA, I got the head of the FAA, not 1 astronaut, but 20 astronauts with me. The Lindbergh family announced this front page around the world. No one asked, do you have the money? We didn't. Do you have the teams? We did not. But we went out. And over the course of the next 5 years, teams started registering. Teams that took off from the land, teams that took off from the ocean, teams that took off using a balloon first stage, teams that had designs on top of an airplane, below an airplane. Ultimately, we had 26 teams from 7 countries around the world who ended up spending $100 million to try and win the $10 million prize. And I was extraordinarily lucky to find a wonderful philanthropic family, the Ansari family, born in Tehran, moved to the US, became telecom entrepreneurs, had just sold their company to Sonos Networks for $1 billion, and they said, I love what you're doing, and we named the prize in their honor, the Ansari X Prize. Thank you. Thank you to them. And on a beautiful morning, not far from here, 2 hours north, in the Mojave Desert, a beautiful vehicle built by Burt Rutan, backed by Paul Allen, took off on its 2nd flight to claim this prize. We had literally 30 or 40,000 people who drove in, flew in, came in from around the world to watch the first ever winning of an X Prize and making history by a privately funded team. And what I didn't say is I had pitched hundreds of CEOs and CMOs to say, come on, you only pay the prize after someone's won it. But everybody said, why isn't NASA doing this? It's way too hard. Someone's going to kill themselves. So the Ansaris really took a risk in stepping up to put this forward. The vehicle took off on an airplane, ignited its rocket engines, made it into space. Those of you who are pilots know that every airplane has an N number, and the N number here, 328 Kilo Foxtrot, stands for 328,000 feet, which is 100 kilometers and the boundary of space. We came down and really opened an era of private spaceflight. On stage there with me, Paul Allen, who backed Burt Rutan next to him, Brian Binney, who made the flight, and Richard Branson, who on the day the flight was won, bought the rights to commercialize the winning vehicle. Pretty cool. 6 billion media impressions around the world. Front page of Google. Link to our website. Took down our servers for a couple hours. Wasn't very cool. What I'd like to do now is show you a short video and take you back to those moments and the excitement that we all had. If we could go ahead and roll that video. We're announcing today something called the X Prize, a $10 million contest to privately build a spaceship that's able to carry 3 individuals, fly to 100 kilometers altitude, and do that twice inside of 2 weeks.
By defining the challenge with the Ansari X Prize, the X Prize Foundation ignited a new race to space, luring teams from around the globe.
We're based in Mojave, California.
Israel, Oklahoma, Forks, Washington, Romania.
Acting as the catalyst, the X Prize Foundation demonstrated an incentivized competition can change the world.
Hello and welcome to Mojave here in the high desert of California on this incredible day. Now you are going to witness history in the making. And there it goes.
Release arm fire.
The Ansari X Prize inspired international competition, drove regulatory reform, and made history, dramatically demonstrating that space travel was not exclusively the province of government.
The X Prize for $10 million.
It ignited a personal spaceflight revolution.
Thank you. Very proud that the winning vehicle is now hanging in the Air and Space Museum right above the Apollo 11 capsule and next to the Spirit of St. Louis, the most visited museum on the planet. Now, the results, Spaceship 2, which is the derived vehicle from Spaceship 1, is in construction and is just doing its test flights. In fact, just 3 weeks ago, did the first drop test of Spaceship 2 here in the Mojave Desert. And between this vehicle and another vehicle that came out of the Ansari X Prize, built by Armadillo and operated by Space Adventures, there are hundreds and thousands of people who put down deposits to fly privately into space.